Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Mayor Foley?
Here.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
Here.
Councilmember Atwater?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Councilmember Altieri?
Here.
Let the record show all members are present.
All right, item 2, agenda reordering, deletions, or emergency additions. The town manager will have one request to move an item up from item 9, and are there any other requests from council before we do that? Okay. Mr. Harpering, you want to move item 9E up to 9B?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you very much. We'll start item number 3. We have a presentation on sea turtle and artificial light information in the county's habitat conservation program presentation. We're looking forward to this. Noticed in the media today, since we're entering turtle season, that there was some very nice coverage of sea turtle rescues and the things that are being done to make sure that we coexist in what was, of course, their habitat before it was ours. So with that, please take it away.
Good morning, members of the council. My name is Quentin Bergman. I am the Indian River County's Coastal Resource Manager. Today we have a great presentation for you from our sea turtle environmental specialist, Jess Studinsky. She's been with the county for about 6 years, or 6 months. She took the role that I previously held as the sea turtle environmental specialist. So without further ado.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Jess Studinsky, as Quentin said. I'm grateful to be with you all today to talk about sea turtles, artificial lighting, and the county's habitat conservation plan. As many of you may know, we have 7 species of sea turtles globally. 3 of those species are common nesters here in Indian River County. That's the loggerhead, the leatherback, and the green sea turtle. All species of sea turtle are listed as either threatened or endangered species, and our nesting season here in Indian River County starts March 1st every year and runs through the end of October. So about a week left of our nesting season for 2024. So during that time, during nesting season, we have hundreds of females coming ashore to lay eggs on the beach. So this typically happens at night. A female will come ashore, deposit eggs in the sand, she'll cover that nest and head back to the water. These females will lay multiple clutches of eggs per nesting season, typically at like a 2-week interval. And they don't nest every year because it's a huge energetic expense. They usually will take a year or sometimes up to 5 years off in between nesting seasons. Once those eggs are deposited, they will incubate in the sand for about 55 days. Hopefully that clutch of eggs will hatch. Those hatchlings will come to the surface and then hopefully make their way down to the water. And it's important to note that sea turtles are highly visual animals, and part of that trek to the water, they're using visual cues to find that ocean from the nest site. Statistics show that about 1 in 1,000 to 1 in 10,000 sea turtles will actually make it to reproductive age, which is about 20 to 30 years of age. So each one of these females in the population is incredibly valuable. So Indian River County hosts some of the highest density nesting in the state of Florida, which is fantastic. Back in 2004, 20 years ago, the county was issued an incidental take permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. A requirement of that ITP was the development of a habitat conservation plan, or an HCP. And the goal of that HCP was to improve the productivity of our beaches here in Indian River County as sea turtle nesting habitat. And the HCP is made up of 4 components or pillars, and those are listed on the screen there. The first one was the development and implementation of a sea turtle conservation program or a monitoring program. The second was an artificial light management program, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. Thirdly was the development of a predator control plan. And then fourthly was to expand upon our education and outreach programs within the county. So sea turtle monitoring. All 22 miles of our beaches here in the county are monitored on a daily basis from March through October each year. The boundaries of monitoring start at Sebastian Inlet and go down to the St. Lucie County line, and that's broken down into 6 different management areas. Monitoring is primarily performed by two groups. There's a small section of beach that's covered by Disney's conservation team, but the bulk of the monitoring is performed by our consultant, the county's consultant, Ecological Associates, or EAI. So every morning, many of you may have seen ATVs out on the beach at sunrise. These are the surveyors looking to document all of the nesting activity from the night prior. They are marking with stakes and flagging a subset of sea turtle nests with the intent to monitor those nests through their incubation period. And then after those nests have hatched, they will go in and excavate or inventory those contents to determine how successful those nests were. So that's happening every day during the nesting season. And all of that data is handed over to Indian River County, and this is what we get from those efforts. So this is all of our nesting activity, our total number of nests that we've documented on our beaches here in the county since the implementation of our HCP in 2005. Each one of these lines on the screen is representative of a different species. So the top line, the black one, is loggerhead sea turtles, which are our most prevalent or abundant species in the county. That middle line is for green sea turtles, and the bottom line is for leatherback sea turtles. And you can see that since 2005, all of our nest numbers are continuing to increase, which is fantastic news for us here. Those red stars that you're seeing indicate the highest nesting year on record for each species. So as many folks know, last year, 2023, broke a lot of records, not just in the county, but statewide. It was a record-breaking year for both loggerheads and green sea turtles, and the year before it was a record-breaking year for leatherback sea turtles. Importantly, we know that sea turtles aren't nesting every single year. As I said, they usually take multiple years off between nesting seasons. So what you typically see is a very high year followed by maybe an average or a below average year. And that's what we are trending to see so far this year in 2024. I think most people, when we hear the word average, maybe it doesn't sound as nice or as good, but average is an okay year and expected. And so for 2024, we've got about a week left in our nesting season, and these numbers are pretty much totals for the year, but we're average for leatherbacks, we're average for loggerheads, and we're slightly below average for greens this year. And in total, still over 8,000 nests on our 22 miles of beach, which is incredible. I'll also just note that these tables are updated weekly, and they can be found on the county's website, indianriver.gov. So as we know, there are numerous global and local threats to sea turtles, many of which are on the screen here. Here in Indian River County, we're often dealing with predation or maybe impacts from domestic dogs. There might be impacts from other nesting turtles on the beach, entanglement in fishing gear, or interactions with vessels. But the one I want to chat about today is light pollution. So artificial lighting and wildlife. Artificial lighting is technically defined as light that's emanating from a man-made source or structure. So as these turtle nests have continued to increase in our county, so too has coastal development. And I should note that's not just here in our county, that's throughout the state of Florida. And with increased development, you typically see an increase in artificial lighting in coastal areas as well. Those sea turtles are very visual animals, and artificial lighting can alter their behavior. Artificial lighting can generally have one of three impacts on wildlife. It can attract wildlife, which basically puts them in an area where they shouldn't be. That's the case of sea turtles, where often they're attracted to a light and they might end up in somebody's pool in their backyard, or maybe on a roadway where they're susceptible to a vehicle strike. Artificial lighting could also repel animals, which prevents an animal from being in the habitat that it needs. It's actually a form of habitat loss. Or thirdly, it can alter the patterns of sea turtles, the patterns of animals, whether that's sleeping patterns or reproductive patterns or other behaviors. So we know, based on studies, that sea turtles are attracted to short wavelengths, which are your bright white lights, and they're less disturbed by long wavelengths, which are your oranges and red lights or wavelengths. You can see the visible light spectrum there on the screen, and those wavelengths that are longer are turtle-friendly lights, less impacted lights to sea turtles. So what are the impacts? Artificial lighting can impact turtles at different life stages. I'll first focus on nesting females. So these turtles are coming ashore to nest typically at night, and let's say a female comes ashore, comes out of the water, and sees a bright light on the beach. That in and of itself can be enough to deter that female from doing her nesting attempt. She can go back into the water and will have to find another suitable location to nest. Lighting can also impact turtles at almost any stage in the nesting process. So what this might look like is a turtle will come ashore. The nesting process can take multiple hours depending on the species. She could be digging her egg chamber, about to deposit her eggs, and maybe there's folks walking on the beach with flashlights or bright cell phones. She can abandon that nesting attempt, go back to the water, and that would result in what we call a false crawl or an unsuccessful nesting attempt. And we see evidence of this on the beach in the morning on our surveys. We can follow her track and see exactly what she did, and oftentimes we might see human footprints around the nest site, or it might be very obvious that there's a light source nearby that may have abandoned that nesting attempt. So that's nesting females. But there's also potential for lighting to impact hatchlings, which is the bulk of what we see here in Indian River County. So there are about 100 eggs in each clutch of a sea turtle nest. These hatchlings all hatch at once. They come to the surface of the sand, and their goal is to move towards the brightest horizon. So on a natural beach, think about the nice dune profile behind a nest, and nice dune vegetation creates a pretty dark silhouette behind a nest site, and the brightest horizon would be the reflection of the moon or the stars on the ocean surface. But often what you see instead is something like this. Instead of all of your hatchling tracks kind of starting at the nest site and funneling perfectly down to the water line, instead you see hatchling tracks kind of all over the place. They're meandering down the beach, maybe going back towards the dune instead of the water. They might be doing some circles. That's what we call a disorientation event. And we see evidence of this again during those morning surveys. So disorientation events can be,
for 2022, that outlier year where the disorientation events were double what they normally are.
Yeah, so on average, we're seeing around 80 disorientation events per year in Indian River County. I don't know what was going on in 2022. My best guess would be that it was a lower nesting year, and so our rate of detection was higher. So 2023, as you remember, was record-breaking last year, and our surveyors, some days are spending 10 plus hours on the beach just trying to finish their morning survey. Oftentimes, disorientation events are really hard to detect because only a small sample, only about 10% of our total nests on the beach are marked with those stakes and flagging tape. So you can imagine a surveyor zooming down the beach on an ATV, trying to keep track of everything that's going on that beach. Oftentimes, disorientation events go unreported. So that would be my guess. But it's important to note that any delay on the beach for sea turtles can result in them becoming dehydrated, exhausted, increasing their rate of predation, and ultimately that animal can perish. So as I mentioned, about 80 disorientation events that we're seeing every year in Indian River County. Our surveyors are documenting these and reporting them to FWC, which is the state agency that monitors this in Florida. So what are we doing about artificial light management? This is component 2 in our habitat conservation plan, and there's a few things that our HCP requires. The first is a pre-season lighting letter that goes out before nesting season each year to all of our beachfront property owners in unincorporated Indian River County. So this is essentially a letter that says, hey, everyone get ready, we're about to go into sea turtle nesting season, our lighting ordinance is about to go into effect, here's what you can do to make sure you're compliant with our lighting ordinance. So that's step 1. Step 2 is our HCP requires the county to perform 2 annual lighting surveys each year. So the county has a contract, again, with EAI, Ecological Associates, to go out and perform these lighting surveys annually. And what that looks like is a lighting specialist will go out on an ATV at night, and they will document any light that is out of compliance with the county's lighting ordinance. Once they get back, they will put that in a report form like you can see on the screen here. That report gets passed along to the county, which goes to our code enforcement officers, and then they can work with beachfront property owners to bring all of those lights into compliance. So that's the second component. And then the third component that the HCP requires, again, are those documenting those disorientation events that surveyors are seeing on the beach every morning in the field.
Jessica, just
Yes.
before you move off this slide, Why do the preseason lighting letters only go out to the unincorporated county?
Unincorporated county is all that's specified in our HCP. All 22 miles of beach in the county are covered under a lighting ordinance. It just might not be Indian River County's lighting ordinance. All of our local municipalities have their own separate ordinance as well that might have their own specific requirements.
Okay, but it would seem to make sense to me that you sent it out to all. I mean, Indian River Shores is part of the county. Vero Beach is part of the county, Orchid. Maybe
Yeah.
it's something to think about, or maybe you can't do it. I don't know.
Yeah, great food for thought. I'm not sure why we focus just on unincorporated Indian River County, but I know that frequently throughout the nesting season, the county works with property owners all across the county to help address lighting issues too. So good food for thought, for sure. Aside from our HCP requirements, I'll also just mention that the county also has nourishment project requirements or permit requirements for our beach nourishment or sand placement projects, which I'll just highlight here. Again, for those permit requirements for nourishment projects require 2 lighting surveys for the nesting season following construction. And then a summary report of those surveys and any corrective actions are then sent to FWC and DEP, our regulatory agencies. So we've got HCP requirements and then permit requirements for specific projects that the county works on.
Excuse me,
Yes.
does the county or other agencies perform, so we're about to do a major beach nourishment. Does the county do a survey before the beach nourishment event and then after the beach nourishment event to determine the potential ill effects of nourishment upon false crawls? And it's not a disorientation issue. I think it's more of a migration issue.
Yeah, so Quentin, please correct me if I'm wrong, but there are different requirements depending on where you're working. So if a nourishment project, let's say, was happening in unincorporated county, because we have the HCP requirement to do lighting surveys twice a year annually, we would have the before and after. For certain areas, like the Sector 4 project that's upcoming, I believe we did not have a lighting survey last year, but we will have one because it's required on the permit for this project specifically. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly that. Our construction permits don't require that we do a pre-season or pre-nourishment lighting survey. However, because of our HCP, we do have that ability in some areas. For this Sector 4 project coming up, we were not required to do that. However, we do have the nesting data. So when you mentioned false crawls, we do have the data on false crawls, just not on the lighting ordinances.
And there are certain monitoring beaches within, for instance, Sector 4, right? How many monitoring sectors are there within the sector?
So as far as beach renourishment, we have 8 management sectors. That's for coastal erosion. For the HCP and the habitat conservation, for the habitat conservation plan, we have management areas. They don't necessarily align. The management areas for the HCP more align with jurisdictional boundaries, while the sectors for beach renourishment do a lot more on the coastal processes.
And one of the management areas outlined in our HCP is Indian River Shores, which makes up about 25% of the nesting in the county, which is pretty incredible. Okay, so what can we do about artificial lighting? Of all of the threats, globally and locally, I do feel like artificial lighting is the one that's most tangible. The best option for sea turtles is obviously no lights, but recognizing that's not always a practical solution to our needs, it's better to ask yourself, what's the purpose of the light? Is it for safety reasons? Are we trying to light a walkway or a crossover? Is it for aesthetics, to show off your property or maybe your landscaping? Is it for compliance? Regardless of the purpose of the light, there's usually a wildlife-friendly option available. I'll just highlight a few what we call golden rules that the county supports. These were put out by FWC to make sure lighting is wildlife friendly. The first rule of which is keep it low. and low refers to mounting the light fixture as low to the ground as possible. So you can see in these photos here, all of these light fixtures are mounted very low, and it's just lighting the area where the light is intended to be. It's not lighting the surrounding area or the atmosphere above. So you can see how dark it is kind of above that railway there, and it's just lighting the pathway where the light is desired. So keeping it low is the first golden rule. The second rule is to keep it long, and long refers to a long wavelength, which we briefly talked about already, but again, those sea turtles are less affected by long wavelengths, and FWC classifies turtle-friendly lighting as lighting that's 560 nanometers or greater. Oftentimes when you buy products, it will have the wavelength on the product label. So 560 or greater is considered to be turtle-friendly. So keeping it long refers to a long wavelength. And then finally, to keep it shielded. Keeping it shielded means that you can't actually see the light source emanating from that fixture, and it's also allowing, the shield is allowing that light to be directed downward, again, where you want that light to be and not wasting the energy to go up into the atmosphere. So you can see on a lot of these fixtures here, you can see that there's light emanating from there, but you can't actually see the bulb or the source of the light, which is helpful to anything on the beach to not be able to see that light source. So what we say as a general rule of thumb or takeaway is that if light from an artificial source is visible to a person standing on a beach, that light is likely to cause problems for the sea turtles that nest there. So if you can see a light source from the beach, that will likely cause problems for sea turtles nesting there as well. There's plenty of fantastic resources available out there. I'm just going to mention two today, and the QR codes are also there if you're interested in checking these out. They can be found on myfwc.com. But back in, I believe, 2015, FWC developed a model lighting ordinance for marine turtle protection. So as I mentioned, all 22 miles are covered under a sea turtle protection ordinance during the nesting season here in the county. But if anyone is interested in revising or editing their ordinance in any way, this is essentially a template that FWC developed that local municipalities can reference to make sure that their ordinance is effective for marine turtle protection. So that's available. It's a fantastic resource. And the other one I'll mention today is FWC also has a wonderful certified wildlife lighting program. So this is a pretty rigorous program where manufacturers can basically propose that their fixture go through this wildlife lighting program. FWC reviews it, and if it's approved, it will get listed on their website. So you can go to the website, and let's say you're looking for a wall-mounted light or a pole light or a bollard or whatever the situation might be to meet your needs. You can click on that link, and it'll take you to a really comprehensive document of all light fixtures that FWC has approved to be certified wildlife friendly. And it has all the specs in there, it has the product information, manufacturer, etc. So it's basically like an online shopping guide that FWC has to make sure that your fixtures are wildlife friendly, which is a fantastic option as well. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight, obviously the town of Indian River Shores has a sea turtle protection ordinance, and just across the street here, you can see the beach with all of those points on that map, and each one of those points is a sea turtle crawl from this nesting season. I think this one was from end of August or early September, so there's even more dots that should be on that map by this time, but just want to demonstrate how valuable and important our nesting beaches are in Indian River County, specifically in the town of Indian River Shores. Super high density nesting, and anything we can do to better to keep our nesting habitat productive is in our interests. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that folks may have.
All right, are there any questions from council, starting with Councilmember Smith?
How do we deal, I mean, it seems to me the major source of light that's cast on the beach isn't so much landscape lighting and walkway lighting, but the lights from the buildings themselves, the lights that come out through the windows.
Yeah.
My memory is that there's some sort of code requirement for tinted glass or green glass, is it? Is that, to what extent is that used throughout, say, Indian River Shores?
Yeah, so
or the county?
yeah, you're correct that most of our lighting issues that we see are actually from interior lighting, and there's kind of two solutions to interior lighting. Well, three really. You can remove the light source, you can close your blinds, curtains, or drapes at night. or you can have window tinting. FWC recommends a 45% visual light transmittance for window tinting. I don't know what percentage of our residents in the county or specifically in the town that have that, and I'm not sure what the cost is off the top of my head, but it is a recommendation. I also don't know the ease with which window tinting can be put on winds after the fact. Do you know? Just like normal window tinting. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a viable solution and one that's known to work to help reduce impacts on nesting sea turtles.
But is it a required?
It's not a requirement, no. I don't know, I should also mention, I can't speak directly to the town's code, but from the unincorporated ordinance, it is not a requirement. It's an option to be compliant.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
No questions, but I would like to compliment you on your presentation. It was excellent, very informative, and you did a great job.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Councilmember Elwater? No questions. Okay, so I have a C-spot run kind of question here.
Let's hear it.
The other items have been covered ably by the rest of council. So without sand, obviously there's no nesting. We're going through an effort to try to get our Sector 4 designated as critically eroded. That will enable us to tap into some resources that will allow for, greater sand locations and depositions. So in my true to form C-spot run style, if there were erosive events that reduce the available nesting areas, do those turtles go to the next available area, or is there a preference for them to stay in the same location?
Yeah, so it depends. I mean, in Indian River County, there is still suitable nesting locations. If a female goes to nest and there's, a seawall there and the water is already going up to the seawall, obviously she won't nest there, she'll find another location. It just depends on the female, but you're right in that these turtles need sand to nest, and as our beaches continue to erode, obviously the turtles don't know if they've laid a clutch, 30 days ago that that location may erode in the future, especially if there's, storm impacts like this recent hurricane that we had. So I guess the short answer would be, we need the sand so the turtles can nest there, and study. So for each one of these sand placement projects that we do, we have our control and reference areas in relation to sea turtle nesting. So we have the success of how well those nests have done in the project area, and then how well they've done in a nearby control or reference area. And our recent studies show that the nests are actually more successful. The productivity is better in the renourished areas than the control areas, which is a fantastic sign since we're continuing to pursue these sand placement projects. But that's good news. But to your point, if we lose nesting habitat, these females will have to go elsewhere, whether that's north, whether that's south. But considering Indian River County is such a high density nesting area, that's a lot of females to move around.
Yeah, that was the thrust of my question, which is that there probably has to be some saturation point where only so many females can feel comfortable going and nesting in a location.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for an outstanding presentation of the quality. I rated it 10 plus because we really I learned an awful lot, and it was in digestible form. Normally we wait for members of the public to make comments later in the program. Is there anybody here that would like to ask some questions or is interested in any aspects of the presentation? If so, you don't have to wait to item 14. You can come forward and speak now or ask a question now. Yes, sir.
Just a question about the
Can you approach the podium and just state your name?
I'm just curious about the
Can you state your name and
My
where
name
you
is
live?
Joe Salerno.
Okay.
Good to meet you all.
All right.
Just wondering about the leatherback, why there's not that many of them compared to the loggerhead, Just curious.
It's a great question. It's because they're more endangered than loggerheads. There's just not as many of them out there in our waters.
Okay, they're endangered due to predators or just...
A slew of threats. Leatherbacks are the largest of our sea turtle species, and they are impacted by climate change, by vessel strikes, by fisheries interactions, by loss of nesting habitat, all of the same reasons that our other turtles are. But they are critically endangered. There's just, yeah. And in terms of, yes, level of threat, the leatherback sea turtles are most endangered on the spectrum, at least for the turtles that we have here in Indian River County.
Great, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Really, really cool to see, and it's fantastic. This is kind of the northern range of leatherbacks as well here in Indian River County. The bulk of nesting is just south of us, kind of in the Palm Beach County area. So if you go down there, you will see a higher population of leatherbacks there, but still same situation. In comparison to our loggerheads, which are threatened, and our greens, which are endangered, there's just not as many leatherbacks as there are for other species. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else from the public like to make a comment or ask a question about the presentation? All right, good. So there are at least two follow-up items in my mind that we can take from this, which is the council member Alwater's point. Maybe we could look into some kind of coordination for, mailing early in the season to our residents with the county to let. Unless that's underway already. I see you jumping up and anticipating my question, so please.
No, that was a great comment by Mr. Atwater here. Jurisdictional boundaries do dictate the separation of the ordinances. So our ordinance, the county's ordinance, does not apply for the residents that live inside of Indian River Shores. However, we are happy to coordinate with your staff and your code enforcement to help deliver any sort of pre-season lighting letter. In that letter, we also typically will throw in some other good information as well. So we're happy to share that letter with your staff and have that group effort.
All right, I think that's a good item to follow up on. Councilman Alwater, do you want to?
Yeah, I just, in terms of this discussion, what was brought up about sand and nesting and so forth, and this may be an unfair question, I'll ask it to Quentin anyway. He's used to that from me. At the Beach and Shores Preservation meeting, do you know if FDEP, when they look at whether to make a sector of the beach the critically eroded designation, do they take the marine turtle nesting activity into account as one of their criteria?
That's a great question. So does DEP consider marine turtle nesting activity when they make a determination on critically eroded areas? That's a great question. I would imagine that's going to be a better question asked of DEP. I do not know that answer.
Okay.
If I had to guess, I know that marine turtle activity is handled by FWC, as for the Wildlife Commission, and DEP is the one giving out and dedicating areas that are critically eroded.
Great, excellent question. The second item, potentially to follow up on, going to Councilmember Altieri's query about lighting, ambient lighting emanating from the buildings. The least burdensome alternative is always education, and maybe as part of that letter sent out, we can remind people that during turtle nesting season, it's very simple for them to just, if they don't have the protective glass, that they can just close their blinds. And in that way, they avoid people in future years sitting up here like us saying, well, do we have to now actually mandate people to go to the expense of having to put that in? It's a very simple fix if people just are educated and cooperate. So maybe we can write that down before anybody forgets when we send the letters out next year.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yes.
I don't know if we have the last slide available. Heather, the very last one, the sea turtle lighting survey results. Should just be a tab on at the very end. Yeah, it'll look like that, Heather. Should be very loud. There you go. Mr. Mayor, if I may, the town has, since the reconstitution and enhancement of the code enforcement activities here, we've gotten a lot more involved in formal sea turtle lighting survey activity. This year, and we want to thank our county partners for helping us out a lot. We did an internal staff-generated sea turtle lighting survey, as noted in May. We sent letters, correspondence, follow-up. We then determined that The best course of action would be to use the EAI, the county's vendor, for consistency, to do our own sea turtle lighting surveys. So we've done 3 during this turtle nesting season, and you can see that the number of sites in violation decreased greatly. And I think your point is very well taken, Mr. Mayor, in that once, while we did not this year do preseason letters, we plan on it, and they'll be very consistent with the county letters, so everything is similar. But once the people in town that we contacted and gave them the educational material and stuff, we got great compliance very quickly. So with the exception of the things that we've already done, we will go ahead and institute the pre-turtle nesting season sort of informational educational letter.
Sounds terrific. Thank you very much. Yeah, and we all know our residents. They all want to help, and if we just let them know what we're asking of them, we usually have a very, very high compliance factor. Nobody wants to cite anybody for a violation. That's the last resort. So, how do you always put it? Educate, encourage, and enforce. Right. All right. Thank you very much. If there's nothing else, we're good.
Good. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you for all your good work. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
I'm not sure if we would like to have one of the gentlemen come up and talk about Sector 4, or should we wait till my report later on?
I think we would wait to your report later on because this agenda item was specifically geared toward the turtle presentation.
Okay, thank
This is just a presentation. So thank you very much, Councilmember Smith. All right, item 4, do we have any comments from the public regarding agenda items? Not just general issues, but anything on agenda items. All right. Seeing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have some items requiring roll call votes, so let's have a roll call vote on this. Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll.
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater. Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Altieri. Let the record show the motion passes unanimously.
All right, and I know that all of these were denoted as approval, but the interlocal agreement I kind of thought may require a roll call vote, which is why I did it. So, all right, thanks. Mayor's report. Item 6A, staff commendation on Hurricane Milton. I think with Hurricane Milton, we also have to include the EF3 tornado that doesn't have a name. In a phrase, we were extremely lucky. If you take a look at either on the ground or an aerial survey, the tornado exited, when I walked it off, about 25 yards south of our town border line. We were literally tens of yards to hundreds of yards away from being in the path of the tornado. So we were extremely lucky. Our neighbors to the south were not as lucky. There was some significant damage, from Bahia Mar through behind the village market. The first commendation goes out to our public safety department and our town manager, who was working in concert with them. While we fared much, much better than our neighbors to the south, within minutes of the EF3 tornado hitting, I was notified by Mr. Harpring that he and our public safety officers were responding to assist those in need outside our jurisdiction in the city of Vero Beach, because we were the closest on site, we were the quickest to respond, and obviously the city of Vero Beach was dealing with much greater damage throughout their municipality. So it's a commendation on individuals, but a commendation on the department as well, because they all worked in concert, and we all owe a great debt of gratitude for those helping our neighbors to the south. And it's comforting to know that if it were us, there would be that quick response and effective response as well. We can all really pray and thank God for our blessings that there was no loss of life and really no serious injury, even in that area to the south of the town. But job well done to all of you. And if you could please pass that on to the bulk of the department who's not here. I know they all played a significant role in that. Furthering the commendation, Mr. Harpering, I want to, say on my personal opinion, and I hope council echoes this, the communications were outstanding. Keeping council, fully aware of the situation on the ground and what was happening is not just important, it's essential. And then the communications to the community in Indian River Shores was also outstanding. I think education is a premium in letting people know that the situation is under control. If they do have an issue, where they can turn to for help. That's not something that happened the day of the tragedy. It happened the days leading up to it. And so, excellent job in communicating. I think it calmed some folks that actually it just avoided panic. This is a situation that could have lent itself to panic very easily. We've not seen an event like this. We've had hurricanes, but we've not seen an EF3 tornado, to my knowledge, in the state of Florida, at least for the last 100 years when they've been, keeping this data. So, job well done on the administrative staff, and that also includes Janice, Lucy, Heather, the whole group. If I'm missing names, please let me know. Lastly, I was deeply impressed. Lastly, on this topic, I was deeply impressed with how we helped our own. You made sure that if any of our staff were in need that lived outside our jurisdiction, there were resources available to them from us, and that's a job well done. That's the kind of ethic we want from our employees. We help each other. So great job on that. It also proved the value of interagency agreements. So, it was, we get these things and we approve them and we say, are we ever going to use these? When are we ever going to need a fire truck from this jurisdiction or that jurisdiction? Well, it goes to show you. We were on the giving end. Someday going forward, we may be on the receiving end. So, great job in keeping on top of that. I don't know why my mind went here, but after we got the report that there were no significant structural damage to buildings in the town, and there was no serious threat to life or health in our town, my mind immediately went to the whole discussion we had last month about reserves. We were debating whether or not we should give a fairly modest refund to people on the mill rate. I think the average I calculated was a little bit less than $100, maybe a little bit more than $100, or to put to bank. I believe it was a little over $600,000 in reserves. So here's my conclusion, and it's my conclusion only. But for a quarter of a mile, that $600,000 wouldn't even been enough to cover. So we have to continue to look at this. We're gonna have more of these events, not fewer of them, most likely going forward. So I think better safe than sorry was good, and that's money well put in the bank for peace of mind, right? All right. The next item, the speed limit. I don't know if anybody's here to talk about the speed limit change from Fred Turk going south of 35 miles per hour. I will say that the comments I've got are overwhelmingly in favor of it. I will say this, the comments overwhelmingly in favor of it are the people that live from Fred Turk to the south portion of town where the speed limit has been lowered. I did receive a couple of comments saying, why do we do that? There's always, heavy traffic there anyway. So I did ask, well, in one instance, if there's heavy traffic, what difference does the speed limit make, because you're going bumper to bumper in season anyway? It's not our jurisdiction. FDOT sets the speed limit on that road, but I think it's fair to say that the town supports the reduction in that speed limit to 35. We did have a fatality and a loss of life incident this calendar year there. Whether that speed limit reduction would have prevented that is up for debate. You really can't say, but at least the feedback I'm getting is it's positive. It's positive, particularly since it looks like we're at an impasse, at least for the time being, on installing a sidewalk down below near the 7-Eleven. Our next meeting.
Well, just, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
on that point, that is, getting that speed limit lower is a crucial factor for them to move forward on getting the crosswalk.
Great.
Without that, So,
Okay.
well, Mark Shaw and I are going to get it done.
All right, thank you, we appreciate that.
And Brian, yesterday, I was coming down A1A, and there was a gentleman crossing, a couple of cars ahead of me, and he definitely wouldn't have made it. I mean, he was not aware, and he probably would have been hit if the speed limit been a little bit higher.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Smith. Thank you, Councilmember Alwater. So we can understand then that that reduction in speed limit is a step on the way to putting a sidewalk in there. Great, okay, terrific, glad to know that. November, we will have an organizational meeting, just alerting the public that that's an annual meeting that we have. It's not the third, or rather the last Thursday of the month as usual because of Thanksgiving. So we will be having it on November, is it 14th? November 14th will be our organizational meeting for the year. We will be, at that point, seating a new member of council, Mr. Dane, who's in the audience here, and we will be saying goodbye to Councilmember Smith, who I was going to save this until after the town manager review, but I think it's an appropriate point now to say, Councilmember Smith, this is always bittersweet because it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with you over the past 4 years. That's the bitter part, knowing that you're not going to be here. We're not going to have your sage advice, your talent, your wisdom, particularly all the hard work you did on Beach and Shores, but also on all of the other issues that we benefited greatly and the residents of the town benefited greatly from having you do your hard work and opine on issues of importance to our community. The only sweet part I can think of is that with the removal of the Sunshine Law, we're now able to actually have a drink, talk, maybe play a round of golf together and socialize. For those of you who don't know, we're pretty much prohibited under best practices from having any social interaction with fellow members of council. I know it's a stupid rule, it's not ours, somebody else made it in Tallahassee. But you know, it's been. I can't say enough. And thanking you personally for the support you've given me and the rest of the staff of town over the past several years. It's just been fantastic. So I look forward also to having the unbridled informal advice that you can give as a former council member. That's been done in the past, and you know, that's another criticism I have of it is that, you know, sometimes if we were able to talk more freely about issues, you have insights that, you know, oftentimes maybe we would have thought, wow, I wish we could have talked about that when we were actually making the decision on that, but here we are. So we have a token of our appreciation from council in the town that we're going to give you, and then I'm going to let everybody else talk about their service with you. So why don't we take it, just jump right on in. We don't need to have a formality here.
Oh, it's beautiful. Thank you so much. Before everybody jumps in, I can't wait for the unbridled discussions. I've really had to hold back so many times, but you all have just been wonderful to me. It's just been a pleasure. We don't get paid for this work, but it was almost like that I just wanted to do it because of how much I learned and how great the people were that I worked with, and was exposed to so many things that I never would have been exposed to before. So for that, I thank all of you for supporting me. And I'll miss the meetings, so thank you.
Thank you.
We will miss you, Mary Alice. Mary Alice and I have been friends for probably a long time, 30 years, because we came from the same community in New Jersey. And she's been a dear friend of mine for all of that time. She was also instrumental in encouraging me to raise my hand and participate in town council. And we haven't been able to talk about issues for the last 2 years, but we have on occasion had dinner together. I've enjoyed sitting side by side with you on the dais, and I've enjoyed our time together, and thank you very, very much for all you've done for me and for this community. It's been really very rewarding.
Thank you.
I've also been friends with Mary Alice for 30 years or so, and one of the things that I take great pride in and very thankful for is playing probably a minor role, but a role nevertheless in recruiting Mary Alice to come on council and spending literally hours with her on the phone talking about the responsibilities associated with the position. And I knew Mary Alice prior to those conversations socially and through golf, but as a result of those conversations, it was a great insight to me how effective she was going to be on council, because the breadth and depth of the questions that she asked really took me to task and forced me to think through my own responsibilities. So it's been wonderful serving with you. Over the course of the last 4 years, Mary Alice and I have a routine, believe it or not, in addition to coming to council meetings together, and that is we see each other in the Johns Island Fitness Center at about 9:50 each Monday morning. While I'm stretching after a workout and she's going through the tail ends of her Pilates routine. And going forward, I'll be able to say to her something in a, more than, "Morning, Mary Alice, how are you?" It's been great working with you.
Well, Mary Alice, you correctly point out that you don't do this for the money, it's for public service and giving back to the community. And I used to tell my team that superior decision-making requires many different perspectives. I agree with the Vice Mayor. You brought perspectives that I didn't think about in terms of different issues and good questions. And I think you helped make us a better council team. People don't understand. We have this meeting generally lasts about 3 hours, but you have other meetings, you have committee meetings, you have to learn the numbers and so forth, and it takes a lot of time. And we'll miss those perspectives. So thank you for your service to all of us. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on behalf of staff, I'd like to let council know to, of course, I know Sam and Jim will be prepared, but we have heard Councilmember Smith's unbridled thoughts and opinions on a variety of things in the office, and we appreciate that, and it's always made us all better and kept us moving forward, and we're just grateful to have had the opportunity to serve you and help you serve the community, which you have done in an exemplary manner, and we're just wishing you the best and hope we keep seeing you in the office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Public Safety has a tradition for an outgoing council member.
So we have a white helmet, and the fire service white helmet is reserved for chief officers. So on behalf of the men and women of the Public Safety Department, we'd like to present you with one of our official fire helmets with a council member tag.
Got to put it on. Let's see.
And just remember, Mary Alice, next time there's a fire alarm, we expect to see you on the front line.
All right, so after the council meeting, if council can stick around, we're just going to take a picture or two of Mary Alice in the fire helmet and, with us standing by her. So
Thank you for this. It's beautiful.
you're very welcome. Very welcome. All right, thank you. All right, moving on to item 6B, Town Manager Review. We'll start from Mary Alice and move from Mary Alice down the dais. I will say this, that this will be the formal review, but I think most council members, and I know I do, we give Jim a review probably more often than he wants on a daily or at least weekly basis. But let's do this as the formality. So Mary Alice, if you could kindly begin with your review of our town manager, Mr. Harpring.
Okay, so Jim has been a wonderful help to me the entire time that I've been on the council, and he's never made me feel silly or stupid if I've asked some questions. So yesterday we met, and I had some observations of my time with Jim, and I'm going to try to keep it kind of simple. But I think that Jim is excellent at communication. He's clear and concise, which we just talked about after the tornado event. He's well prepared for unforeseen events, which I think we've just experienced with the recent tornado event. He has created a new and healthy team for our town. So much different from when I first joined 4 years ago to how it is now. He's moved away from the way things used to be to a more forward-thinking process in the organization, and he's taken just a dynamic path forward with our personnel. Just some of the changes, Janice, our town clerk reporting to him, the consent agenda, streamlining our meetings, and numerous other things that I can't even remember at this point. Then we talked about the future, since I won't be here, and I know I'll be unbridled later, but we talked about simplifying and improving some of our government rules and things that we've always done because we've always done them. I've asked him to look at some of our committees and how necessary some of the committees are, like the pension, the planning, and the financial committees, and do we really need all of those inputs just because that's what we've always done. I've asked him to tackle the issue of off-season meetings, which I think were a detriment to me and I think a detriment to the recruitment of future council members. I've asked him to look ahead, 5 years ahead. Let's see where public safety is. It's such an important part of our town, and let's not be afraid, Jim, to be afraid to ask for money to fulfill these wants and needs to keep Indian River Shores just as self-sufficient as it was, obviously, in this past tornado. And then lastly, although we love Jim and we love all the staff, I've asked him to think about succession planning and where we will be in the next 5 years. So I couldn't be more proud of working with you and just talking about what a great job you've done. So thank you, Jim.
I've worked with Jim now for 2 years. I've been on the council for 2 years. Jim's job is 24/7. I mean, he is there not only for the town, but all of the members of the council 24/7. We have his cell phone number. He has ours. I've reached out to him on numerous occasions on weekends. He's always there. His management skills are wonderful. He does a great job with the team here. To Mary Alice's point, he doesn't just think about today and tomorrow and this week and next month. He thinks about where's this town going to be 5 years from now, and that's what we need. So only complimentary things, Jim. I think you've done a great job for the 2 years that I've known you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I echo everything Mary Alice said about the specific issues, and it reminded me that you may not remember this, but during the interview process when we were looking for a new town manager 3 years ago, coming up on 4 in March, I somehow stumbled into the portion of the conversation about what does it take, to kind of get rid of somebody. And I think, I'll paraphrase it, but you said basically the fireable offense is saying that's the way we've always done things. And that's my rule number one. If you're confronting a question, an issue, and an improvement, and the answer you get back is, well, that's the way we've always done things, you have to really wonder whether or not that person still fits within the organization or any organization for that matter. Beyond that, I don't make you sound terribly mean or over-like as a manager, because I know that your preference is to work with people. And in that role, you are a customer service guy. To the people in the town, you don't look at yourself as a government official, a bureaucrat dealing with citizens. You look at yourself as dealing with customers. And that's a wonderfully healthy way to look at how to interact with a town, particularly one of this size. So keep up that good work. The other thing I will say is that, without belaboring the point that Mary Alice made, which is, the personnel changes that have been welcome, I think we've got a wonderfully functioning group, but you also took inventory within the town and decided, who's capable of kind of filling a role here that we need before hiring a consultant, spending money, going outside the town and doing those things, hiring search groups and stuff like that. And I don't want to embarrass a number of people in the town by singling them out, but we have some folks that are performing roles that they just didn't perform 4 years ago, and they're critical roles, whether they be code enforcement, public works. We're accomplishing so much more than we did in years past with the same, and in some instances, less staff. So keep up the good work. I know you know that in your heart you believe there's always room for improvement, but when you get someone like me saying nothing comes to mind, that means that I haven't identified yet what we need to work on, and that's good. That means you're not working on past problems. You're ready, willing, and capable of confronting the future issues that we're going to have moving ahead. I would just say that on the financial side, we used to incorporate a financial discussion into this. Another major improvement that really was recommended by you was, let's not do this each year. Let's have you evaluated with the rest of the town staff. So basically, your increase is matched to whatever the town staff's increase is on a budget basis, so that we're not fumbling around for dollars and cents. And while it's efficient and while it's easier for us because we don't have to fill out forms and then guess what every other council member is going to put down as a number for your raise, because we're not allowed to talk to each other except in public, and that gets a little awkward. What it does is it shows me that you're saying you're very content to be measured not just by your performance, but by the performance of your team. And that speaks volumes about your leadership. So keep up the good work. We're all going to have challenges going forward. Sounds like we may have a few more now that Mary Alice can be unbridled and tell us exactly what we need to work on. But those will be welcome challenges, and we look forward to hearing the information and working on them. Thank you, Jim.
Jim and I spent some time together yesterday afternoon, and I'd like to go over a few of the points that we discussed, I made, and we discussed. First, congratulations on your multiple accomplishments the past 12 months or so. You did, from my perspective, the work of 2 or 3 people over the course of the last 12 months. The next thing I'd like to say is that to compliment you on the staff that you've assembled, how professional they are, and how the staff is made up of what I would call high-quality performers. And at the same time, you've done a very effective job of dealing with non-performers. The mayor made a point about customer service. My phrase for that is service delivery management. And I know from several instances over the course of the last 12 months how prompt, courteous, and accurate your responses have been to not only questions that I put forward, but questions that I have forwarded to you from members of from residents in the town. And I think that your responses and the way you've handled yourself, you've truly demonstrated an appreciation for the unique culture in the town. You've been terrific in anticipating issues that the town must deal with, and as it relates to the various policies that that you put forward, I've always found that your proposals have been extremely informative, always very accurate, and I think you've worked extraordinarily efficiently and effectively with council to make those policies come to life. Planning, it's been said, and I would reiterate that you've always presented clear and effective and understandable agendas, budgets. You've managed the allocation of financial resources well, and I would also reiterate what others have said, that you've demonstrated a capacity for superb written and oral communications. I think you've fostered ethical behaviors amongst members of the staff. You've demonstrated integrity in the way that you've conducted yourself. You've demonstrated an ability to be adaptable and to cope with unanticipated and potentially stressful situations, most recently with Milton and the tornadoes that damaged the area south of town. And even though I can no longer find it, I know that once upon a time we did have a mission statement, and I recall from it certain points, but I think that you have done a fantastic job of demonstrating the town's values and objectives. And last but not least, I think you've also demonstrated a commitment to self-improvement. It's been great working with you over the course of the last several months, and I would say that relative to where we are today compared with the way things were 6 years ago when Brian and I started on council, Elon Musk would be jealous of how many light years ahead we are. So congratulations on that.
Okay, similar to the vice mayor, I met with Jim for roughly an hour earlier in the week, and I gave him a sheet of paper looking at 6 different criteria with a performance scale. 1 does not meet expectations, 3 meets expectations, 5 exceeds expectations. I'll go through it very quickly. It's like 1.5 pages, and I don't want to spend because some of the points were reiterated by my colleagues. Relationships with council, I gave them a 4. We talked about the messages on the breaking events, very well done. Communication, packet, and realize, well, these are Jim's things, he owns them, but at the same time, he put together a team that brings these fruition. As he pointed out to me, he doesn't do it himself. So all things good there in terms of message, so forth. One thing I did ask him as an area of improvement is that, in my opinion, too many times department heads are absent for council meetings, and if council wants to talk to them, they don't have the opportunity. He recognized that and is going to do a better job on that. Fiscal management, I rang a 4. He and Heather, really good track in the annual budget, going after grants. Personnel management, a 5. I mean, really built a good team in the office there. over in the public safety. Mr. Bryant in Public Works does a fantastic job under managing the organization. One last thing I want to say on personnel management. It was important to me because having been here a long time, the absentee rate in Public Safety Department is much more acceptable than it was years ago. So that's a real big positive there. Under managing the organization of 5, some of these overlap with the personnel management, again, Public Works, Town Clerk. The code enforcement process being improved there, I think, is really good. It's being done on a systematic basis. It's not just a one-off, which I felt like it used to be years ago. We're spending the money on the capital infrastructure projects. Nobody wants to spend money, but at the same time, these are things that have to be done to just improve our operation and also harden the campus to a storm. And we're making really good progress on the cybersecurity side, which I frankly was pretty concerned about. So 5 there. Relations with the public, we talked about that before a lot. 5 on that. And then relations with other governments. So he came up with the idea, working with the county on piggybacking on a newly negotiated trash hauling project. I was at a property owners association meeting in my community, and I brought up, what the new rates are going to be down the line compared to what we're paying on the Republic Services. It's the first time in my admittedly somewhat limited career as a public service that somebody came up and gave me a high five. So yeah, it doesn't happen too often there. I mean, the work on the dune restoration, it's been a long fight since 2015. We're almost at the finish line, but in terms of critically eroded, but we got the sand for the dune replenishment. That's something that's always bugged the hell out of me that we couldn't do that. And the anchor limitation agreement, working that out with the county. So for all those things, I think you've done a really excellent job in the last year, and I echo the comments of my colleagues. So thank you for the work you did.
Great. This is always dangerous, but if you want to do a self-appraisal, you can. Otherwise, you can just say thank you and you can move on.
Thank you. I just would like to, Mr. Mayor, certainly recognize that it's a privilege to serve the people of the town, the council members, and to work with the amazing staff that we have right now. And just to echo and amplify that I think the town and the citizens are very fortunate to have the team assembled that we have here, watching out for their best interests in a fiscally responsible way. But again, it's just a great team we've assembled, but most importantly, I think the council has been very supportive of the actions and the things that we've wanted to do, and thank you.
All right, looking forward to 2025 then. The problem with achieving a high bar is, the bar gets a little higher now. So we'll look forward to all the challenges we have going forward. All right, council member items. Is there any issue that a council member wants to bring up at this point that hasn't been brought up already? No? Okay.
Well, do you want me to talk about Sector 4 now or later?
Yes. Well, we could do
Yes?
that.
See, I don't...
We could do that now while we have these folks here, if that's what you're waiting for. Otherwise, it's going to be at the end of the meeting. So, I mean, do you want to have a presentation
I want
first?
Quentin to come up and just,
Okay,
and then
Quentin,
we'll
you
see,
wanna-
because he's the best.
Yeah, would be happy to talk about Sector 4 while we're here. Great opportunity, because we are about to kick off the project. We have had a couple of press releases. Again, for the record, Quentin Bergman, Coastal Resource Manager for Indian River County. Sector 4, long time coming. Happy that we're finally here. So November 1st, we're going to expect a couple of truckloads of sand, and then November 4th, it's going to be full swing. So just to recap, Sector 4 is a beach management segment in Indian River County, one of our 8. It is approximately 3 miles long. It starts somewhere on the north side of Johns Island and extends all the way down to Mariner Village. The project was put out to bid, and the county recently the county commissioners just accepted and awarded that bid to Dickerson Infrastructure for about $6.6 million. The project's going to haul in 135,000 cubic yards of sand from an upland mine source. So this is not a dredge project, this is an upland mine project. This project is also permitted to install dune plants. We have 4 different species, primarily sea oats. We're talking about about 150,000 plants that are going to be installed on top of the dune. That's going to be a great component. Funding for this project, the $6.6 million is quite a bit of money. We're getting grant assistance from Florida Department of Environmental Protection and Florida Department of Environmental Management, or Emergency Management, sorry. And then we just got some good news. We do qualify for the leftover money in the Florida's Hurricane Ian and Nicole Restoration Reimbursement Grant Program. That's a mouthful. That one is a first come, first served basis, so we're doing what we can to make sure we get that funding available. So, and then the local funds are provided by Indian River County through our tourist development tax. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council members have.
Yeah, so Quentin, just let's get back to the upland sign and the sand and the trucks coming over the bridges. I just want everybody to be prepared for people from town asking questions. So just walk us through how many trucks, what time do they start?
Yeah.
Do they go back and forth several times?
Happy to. Great question. And I will start off too that your staff and I, Jim, Mr. Harpering, we met earlier this week and we had a great conversation about communications and messaging. So we are in lockstep there. So there's going to be a lot of good communication coming out here soon. As far as the trucks go, the contractor has indicated that they're going to utilize a subcontractor to provide the trucks. He's looking about 25 trucks on the daily, and those trucks are going to make multiple rounds. So the mine is located just over the county line in Fort Pierce, Indrio Road and 95. That the truckers are most likely, we can expect them to take the path of least resistance that seems to be right now up through across Barber Bridge or maybe the 17th Bridge and up through the city of Vero Beach to our 3 access points. We have 3 permanent access points. One is, starting in the north, is Turtle Trail Beach Park. That's our property. We can utilize that one pretty easily. We also have an agreement with a property owner inside of Johns Island, as well as Johns Island Property Owners Association. So we're going to utilize a vacant parcel there. And then the last one we agreed upon with the town's help is to utilize Beachcomber. So the contractor has those options. It's up to him on how to use those. Those are the means and methods that's going to be depicted by the contractor. What we can anticipate is a possible closure of those 2 public parks, Beachcomber and Turtle Trail, if the contractor decides to move in there. It is in the contract that they have site restoration as well. Answer anything else?
Will they use more than one access point at a time? Or
Possibly. If they do, it'll have to be approved. They'll have to ask us for permission to utilize 2 at the same time.
Okay.
You're good? Mr. Harping and I had a communication yesterday. We have some residents asking about traffic issues on A1A, and you pointed out that, sometime after November 1st we would have this. So I think probably a good idea to have an information blurb set and ready to go, so if inquiries come in from staff, they can let them know precisely what is happening, what these trucks are there for, and where they're doing it. The FPL repair trucks and the AT&T trucks, we really can't control or provide very accurate information on that, but if we get that information out, hopefully as part of a separate email to our residents, and then have staff know how to respond to that. I think that would be helpful.
And Mr. Mayor, we plan on and have coordinated with our friends at the county on language for this communication. So we're going to be putting it in our newsletter. We're going to be putting it on our website, but the town is also going to send out to our residents on our mailing list, all of our residents, a standalone card that has all the information we're going to be posting. So everyone should have it, and staff will be prepared to address that. Additionally, public safety is aware of the trucking issues, public works. So we just really appreciate the cooperation with the county.
All right, thank you very much.
A couple of comments I'll also make too is that for this work, we do have some blackout periods, which I think we're all going to appreciate right around the holidays. So you can expect about 1 week around Thanksgiving, no trucking, no hauling, no work there, and about 2 weeks around the Christmas to New Year's period. And if I may, I do have a response for Councilmember Altwater on the DEP turtle habitat question, if I may.
Yes, please, go ahead.
According to 62B, Florida rule, it is mentioned that upland development, recreational interest, wildlife habitat, or important cultural resources are threatened or lost are also considered.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Terrific. Anything further? Thank you. No? Mr. Harping, do you need county staff here for the rest of the meeting? Oh, you're welcome to stay. I don't know that you want to take the exit stage left? Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move to item 8A, under discussion with possible or probable. I'm sorry? Is that an add-on? Yeah, I'm sorry. My mistake, yes. Okay, 7A.
Okay, so we had a pension, public safety pension board meeting earlier this week. They covered the performance ending through the end of the fiscal year. And I think it's appropriate to look at least once a year where we stand on this, because it does have an impact on the budget of the town. And council heard me say this before, from a financial management perspective, just pure financial management perspective, we're running an investment management operation at the sideline of running a local government. If you look on the first page, these are pages directly out of the consultant's report, so sorry for the size, but it's the best I can do. As of the end of fiscal year, the assets in the fund are just a touch over $20 million. Compare that to our balance sheet for the town's general fund and some of the other funds, that's a little over $9 million, and similar from budget. So if you flip to the next page, please. This shows the asset allocation, and so what this is how the fund is broken down in terms of the asset category. So in domestic stocks, it's approximately 2/3 to 66%. Bond, domestic bonds, 23%, real estate, 9.3%. I'll talk about that a little bit, and then have some cash. So you flip to the next page, please. Under the red line again, I would like to need a whole telescope of the audience to see it. But the nice thing that has occurred in this fund is they have moved away from actively managed funds, which are trying to be a benchmark, which is have consistently underperformed, and plus we pay a high fee to the managers, and move more to index funds. So the Fidelity 500 index fund, which is just trying to meet the standard and Poor's 500 performance, charges only 0.02%. That represents 44%, and I'll talk about in a minute. That's actually a higher result of a decision that was made at this last meeting. Unfortunately, we have these real estate funds, the principal real estate, intercontinental real estate, which are very illiquid funds. Sorry, forgot to do it. Are very illiquid funds, and I'll mention that in a second. So looking on the next page, if you look at the gray bars, that is the range that the investment committee decides in terms of how they're going to allocate the assets. So that committee or that board consists of 2 members from public safety, 2 members that are appointed by the town, and a 5th member which is elected by the other 4. The black line indicates the center of the range, and then the gray indicates the range which is permissible, where they don't have to do anything. So you can see the green mark there is where we currently stand, because stocks have performed so well that has moved above the line, but it's still within inside the policy lines. So, okay, now let's get to the heart of the matter here. The total fund performance up at the top, which is in the A section. If you look at 1 year, the fund, because stocks have done so well, is up 22.45%, but versus its benchmark, it's still underperformed by 1.02%. Over 3 years, it's underperformed by 1.78% versus the benchmark, and then negative 3.3%. The good news is by going to these index funds, that underperformance has been narrowed. Now, if you go to box B, Manning and Napier, they have substantially underperformed their benchmark over the last year. If you look across here, even though they were up 19.37% versus the index, they underperformed by 8.39%. Now, there can be swings from 1 year to the next, but they've underperformed in 3 years and 5 years. The committee the board made the decision on Tuesday to sell out of that fund and buy a index fund which matches the Russell 1000 Value Index. The advantage of that is, well, you lose the chance for outperformance, you also lose the chance for underperformance, and the fee goes down from 0.45%, I believe, to about 0.05%. So, and you can see the Fidelity 500 Index Fund, because large cap stocks have done well in the C box, was up 36% on the year. Flipping to the next page, D and E are different types of bond funds, and they have performed well, so there's really not too much to talk about here. Now, this is my bugaboo that I've talked about before. These real estate funds, they're in standalone accounts which directly buy, they might be apartment complexes, commercial office buildings, and so forth. And these funds have been a real drag on the performance of the overall pension fund. It results in not only the town's taxpayers having to contribute more, but the public safety personnel having to contribute more. So, so that's box F. If you go to the next page, I'm going to just give you a little bit more detail here. So, well, actually, let's go one more page, if you could, please. Heather, yeah, no. Okay. So if you go to the next page, these are the estimated annual fees that each of these subcomponents charge the fund, and they obviously recommend cause a drag on performance. Look at the bottom, the Intercontinental Real Estate and the Principal Real Estate. They charge 1.10%, substantially higher than any other investment. Well, for the privilege of paying that fee, we're getting lousy performance. So if you flip back to the next page, you'll see that box F there, you'll see that over 1 year, they had a negative 8.25%, and 3 years they were still negative. But here's the kicker, and I've brought this up before. Instead of owning in a liquid fund, they could have bought a real estate investment index fund. Now, last year was up 34.2%. They can really swing back and forth. But if you look at the 3-year performance of the Vanguard REIT fund, if you bought a Fidelity REIT fund, it would be the same thing. It had a 2.5% return annualized over 3 years versus almost a negative 2% for these funds that we pay these high fees on. So the board is trying to take money out of those funds. Here's the problem. Everybody else is trying to do it. So those funds own properties. The only way they get cash flow to fund redemptions, they have to sell a building. They'll try to sell an office building right now when people are still not coming back to work. If you look at warehouses, which have done pretty well, drive down I-95, particularly south of the county line, St. Lucie County. There are so many warehouses being put up that things are being flooded with and so forth. So 2 years ago, in 2022, they tried to redeem out of their $1.8 million investment in real estate. They tried to redeem a lousy $300,000 out of that. because everybody else is doing that. Only 15 to 20% of that order has been filled. You can't get out. It's like the Roach Hotel. You go in, but you can't get out. This is why that board in the future really has to think about doing anything from an illiquid sort, because you just get trapped in these things. If they had gotten out and put it in anything else, the performance would have been so much better. So hopefully they've learned their lesson. There was some talk that the consultant was thinking about putting them in an illiquid infrastructure fund. That has dropped off the side. It comes up again. I'm going to bring up these things. So, overall, from a total fund perspective, it was an okay year. Certainly better than some of the other years. But this has direct impact on the paychecks of our rank and file public safety department. That said, I would say the performance of the members now, they're much more engaged than they were 2 or 3 years ago, and so that's a positive. So I'd be happy to take any questions. So,
Any questions for Mr. Alwater? I'm good. All right. Okay. Yes, and I'm sorry, you're just... Comments from the public are usually at the end, but if you'd like to do that, that's fine. No, come on up now. You can. We let the county guys go. We might as well.
Good morning. My name is Roseanne Salerno, and I'd like to know what % funded is this plan?
We don't have the current numbers. Last year was what, like was 105? No, it was about 9. It was about 97% funded. So we're. If I had to make a guess, given the performance of the stock market, and this is just, don't hold me to it, I bet we might be at 110%.
Thank you.
And one other thing I'll point at, and this council wants to make sure that the pension fund is funded properly, not like most governments in this country. Not only are we fully funded on the pension fund, but in addition, there's a fund called an OPEB fund, which basically funds retiree health contributions. We're substantially overfunded. If you look at the amount of overfunding with both of these combined, I think you can probably count on 2 hands in this country how many people are in that situation. So, we believe in our commitment to public safety personnel and as well as the rest of the town's personnel.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Elwater. And apropos to this, Mr. Harpering and I had a conversation a couple of days ago. We've had a few conversations the past couple of weeks, but with all the noise about other issues in this election cycle, the one that seems to have been orphaned is the discussion of underfunding of pension plans throughout the country. It'll come back. And there are some states, some municipalities in the Northeast in particular, and the Midwest, and we don't have to call them out. They're in crisis mode. A couple of bad performance years, and they're going to be under their statutory minimum. So, I think, to your point, Councilman, our participants in these plans have to understand. And if they don't, we are remiss in not letting them understand the benefit of having a well-funded, fully funded pension plan and the potential disastrous effects it could have on their benefits when it comes time to take those benefits if anything were to happen to that system. So that's a responsibility I know this council, long before any of us up here were here, took very, very seriously. There was that old saying, what are we, a pension plan with a town built around it, or something like that? It's probably one of the most important responsibilities we have. That being said, because of the current statutory structure of this, we have very limited ability to make meaningful change. We can make suggestions, but we don't have a majority of the pension board. It's statutorily defined as two picked by the public safety department, 2 picked by us, and then a tiebreaker. Kind of sounds like how teams were picked for kickball back in the day. But the best we can do is to continue to use the the keen insight of people who were in this industry before, notably Mr. Alwater and Vice Mayor Carroll. You and I are lawyers. We understand enough to be dangerous. Mary Alice was in that, but all we can do is exercise persuasive authority and continue to try to bring forward to them the tangible impact this has on what they pay out and what they will get going forward. So with that, thank you for your hard work on this. I know you pay very close attention to it, and it's greatly appreciated. And I apologize for missing 7B rather. It wasn't on my agenda item. I wasn't trying to skip it on purpose. Thank you for your report. All right. Okay. There's no 7C on an agenda that I have, is there? So let's move to item 8A, discussion with possible or probable action. Ordinance number 575, amendment to Article 6, the Code of Ordinances, the Planning, Zoning, and Variance Board. Second reading. Before I ask Mr. Sweeney to read that, this is an example of what Councilmember Smith was bringing up. Going through and identifying areas in our mandates, in our ordinance mandates, that no longer make sense and falls into that because we always did a category. So take it with that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is ordinance number 575, ordinance of the Town of Indian River Shores, Florida, amending and repealing the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Indian River Shores, Florida, as follows. Article 4, Planning, Zoning, and Variance, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. As mentioned, this is the second reading.
Are there any questions or comments from council? As it is a second reading, if there are no further comments, may I have a motion and a second to approve?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mayor Carroll? Mayor Foley?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Alwater?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith? Councilmember Altieri? Let the record show the motion passes unanimously.
All right, resolution number 24-17, which is a non-ad valorem assessment for solid waste. Before we'll let Mr. Harpring get in on this. This, in my reading and understanding, is a purely ministerial act on our part, basically to adopt a procedure for the assessment of our solid waste costs throughout our municipality.
That's correct. It really, there's no, it's pretty straightforward in that it just is going to authorize the, what had been referred to as universal billing or collection. So it's the authorization to have that assessment for solid waste as opposed to what we do now, which is the direct billing from the vendor.
All right. Any questions or comments from council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may quickly read the title.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 2417, a resolution of the Town of Indian River Shores, Indian River County, Florida, electing to use the uniform method of collecting a non-ad valorem special assessment to be levied within the incorporated area of the Town of Indian River Shores, stating the need for such levy, providing for administrative actions, providing for conflicts, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council or comments? Mr. Alwater.
From a procedural perspective, does the town have to do anything, or is that the property assessor's job in terms of putting the tax or non-valorem roll together?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Alwater, this is the first step of essentially 3 steps. This is sort of the enacting resolution, allowing us to do it after the first of the year, sometime in the spring. That will lead us to our second resolution, where we will have the defined amounts expected per unit. And then as we approach the budgeting season, late June, July, and finalize those, we then will finalize that. But you also see in here, and I believe it's on the fourth section, administrative actions and measures, it starts to let the property appraiser, tax collector, and also the state of Florida know that we will be utilizing that process. We will work in conjunction with them, much like we already do for our other regular ad valorem process. We have to give them the role and confirm all of that. So.
And Councilman Broward, there's no administrative burden or effort on our part because the property appraiser, the tax collector already has the roles for the town residents.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if anything, there's less of an administrative burden because we won't be having people calling up saying I got double billed for my for my account. One question, actually one comment, is that people are still able to have their own account with Republic Services should they decide to retain that account for things outside the scope of the new carding contract. So for long hauls, renting a dumpster and things of that nature. So people, the residents should know that they can keep their Republic account if they want. They just won't be required to bill for that. So, all right. This will not require a second reading, so any other questions, or if not, we'll take a roll call vote.
Mayor Foley?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Carroll?
Aye.
Councilmember Atwater?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith? Councilmember Altieri? Let the record show the motion passes unanimously.
All right, terrific. Moving from item 8 to item 9, we have two officials. That's why we made the change. Building official report and statistics will be up next. I understand you guys are in training in a seminar and took
Yes, sir.
time out of
We're
your schedule. Yeah.
doing some training today and tomorrow. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of council. In addition to the September submitted report, I do not have any further information to discuss with council, but I'll open it up for questions.
Any residents contact you with concerns of structural damage as a result of the storms, or we
No, sir.
still lucky in terms of the
We're still lucky so far.
Okay.
I'll keep the town manager posted if I hear anything.
And then another quick question. The structural integrity reserve studies by statute have to start coming in at the end of the year.
Correct.
Anybody file those yet, or are they?
Not the structural integrity studies.
We're waiting until the deadline.
Yes, sir, they are. I've been receiving milestone inspections per the letter that I sent out and based on the COs of the buildings themselves, but nothing to do with structural integrity studies as of yet.
Okay, all right. That's all I have. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for once again dealing with an unfunded mandate. You know, things
Yes, sir.
we're required to handle.
Oh, boy.
Legislature tells us to, but they don't give us any money to do it. So.
Right. Great. Thank you, sir.
Anything else for Mr. Held? No.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Atwater.
How many of those reports or how many buildings are, quote, required to do those type of studies that you expect to eventually get?
For the milestone inspection reports?
Yeah, inside the confines.
Approximately 35 off the top of my head. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right. We have a rolling spreadsheet that we have on file, so when they come in, we go ahead and log the reports. But approximately 35 from what I can remember.
And like anything else, they're a public record, correct?
I'm sorry?
Like everything else, they are a public record, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Held. All right, we moved code enforcement up to item 9B. Mr. Mike Kranz?
Good morning.
Sorry, Sergeant Mike Kranz.
Other than what was provided in the packet for code enforcement, I have no other updates. Any questions, concerns?
Any additional work you see from code enforcement as a result of the storms that's going to be requiring more of your time?
As of now, no. Same with Mr. Held.
All right, thank you. Anything from council? Mr. Alwater?
Election signs. I see they're starting to sprout up pretty well. What are you guys seeing on that? So up and down A1A, a person named Kennedy is running for an office. Have you seen that? Much of?
I haven't. Just what was brought to my attention, I believe it was yesterday or the day before.
Okay.
I believe Larry grabbed those.
Okay. All right. That's just. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, we do need to be diligent because if one person sees a sign, whether it's an election sign or not, and obviously this has no reference to any particular party, it's content neutral, which is required by the Constitution. And even Joe's Mosquito Service can't put up signs.
That's correct.
So, and I've also seen some popping up, and you've done an excellent job of I'm sure they're trying to be helpful, but contractors, advertising services for yard and debris cleanup and things like that. So thank you for being diligent on that.
No problem. Thank you.
Right. Anything else? All right, let's move to the town treasurer report.
Good morning. I've provided you my report. I'm available for any questions that you might have regarding this.
Is there anything for Heather?
No. The only item I have to update is we did get the firefighter supplemental revenue for the pension plan, and it was $87,000. Prior year, it was $40,000. This is the extra money that we get from their trust fund. So it's random every year how much we get from that fund.
Right. I do have one question, since nobody else does, and it's on the ambulance reimbursement write-off. I didn't go back and check, but it looked to me to be higher than in previous years. Is that because we haven't made the collections yet from the first-party providers, or?
Yeah, for the ambulance, the fact that we haven't collected the monies on that.
Yes.
That is because of the Change Healthcare, that they haven't billed it. So it hasn't been billed, and that's why we are currently in the process of trying to get a new provider, because they had gotten, Change Healthcare back in February had gotten hit by a cyber attack, and basically it froze their system. And
Will we eventually get that, or
we will.
are you
With the new provider,
anticipating
they
a
can go back. I'm going to have to do some write-off because of timing on it, but we should be be able to get the majority of the funds because most of our money comes from Medicare.
Yeah.
So we will get reimbursed. It's timing. We got to get set up with the new vendor, and then they have to go back and see what's been billed and reconcile and get those billings to Medicare so that they can get the money.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much. Anybody else? No? All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety, Chief?
Good morning. In addition to my standard information I provide on a monthly basis, I would like to bring you up to date on a couple of other items. We had the complaint about the traffic issues in front of Johns Island, and the contractors coming in at 7:30 and creating the log jams there. With the help of Johns Island Security, we passed out some flyers to all the contractors that were coming through, whether they were construction or yard maintenance or whatever the case might be. They've all been provided that. We gave them a drop dead date of when we were going to start traffic enforcement in that area. Started off with just warnings initially, and now we've gone to the enforcement side of it. That has worked out very well for us. If you notice, come through there prior to the 7:30 opening time, you will not see anybody parked in the turn lanes or in the medium of the right of way on A1A now. So we've cleaned that area up, and we're happy with the support that we've got from Johns Island with the notification to the contractors. The construction of the facility next door is going well. High praises for the contractor that was selected by the town. Their communication has been tremendous. We know we can advance every place that they're going to be, everything that they're going to be doing. Been very happy with our the internal cooperation with them and our communications with them. So that's going on very well. Mayor mentioned earlier the speed limit reduction sign from here south, from Fred Turk South. We have gone through the education process on that. We've put up the signs and the blinking signs to make sure everybody's aware of that. And we will slowly be moving into the enforcement phase of that, making sure that we enforce that 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. And finally, I'd like to bring up the response to the recent hurricane event that occurred with the town. First and foremost, to my team, to the folks that I work with day in and day out, just a tremendous job that they did. We did bring some additional staffing online prior to the storm and during that, but they were out there, they were involved. They made a difference to a lot of people, not only in our community, but also those just to the south of us. And I'm very proud of the job that they did and all the services that they provided, not only to this community, but to the city of Vero Beach. Thanks to my boss, I tried to keep him informed the best that I could, sometimes to bring him up to speed as to what we're doing, and sometimes to ask for forgiveness. Fortunately for both of us, we have worked together for many years together in different roles, understand how each other work, and it paid off dividends when this event came through, and it worked out very well for both of us. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but once again, my team my guys did a great job, and I couldn't be prouder of them. So happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, as did you. Any questions or comments? So, yeah, it was, from my perspective, and you guys have been doing this for a career, we're unpaid public servants up here doing it as a volunteer. The communication and coordination with the county and intergovernmentally never went better, and it was gratifying to see that. So thank you. Thank you for bringing to bear those personal resources and relationships. Should we need them in the future, it's comforting to know they're there. So thank you very much.
Very well, thank you.
All right. Chief, one more thing. I'm sorry. I know you guys bear the brunt of complaints about speed limit reductions and stuff like that, but are people generally, are they understanding about it? The residents of the town. I'm not talking about, trucks zooming through. I mean. No. Mostly after we explained what has happened, and that, number one, the town does not regulate that speed limit, but it is a state function and a state highway. That usually calms it down quickly right there. But we haven't had anybody really being irate in filing those types of complaints with us. Terrific. And, to Councilman Outwater's point, I think it's a good idea to let people know. I didn't understand that this is a good step on the way to installing the crosswalk. That's very helpful information, because we have overwhelming support for that. So I think if our residents know, well, if you want the crosswalk in there, here's one step along the way, that actually helps. I think it was a good idea anyway, given what happened last year, and seeing people try to race across A1A in flip-flops, which is not a good idea. I've tried it. Not a good idea. Try to run across the street. So I think maybe adding that to, kind of letting any residents that complain about that know that this is one step on the way to the crosswalk may be helpful. All right. Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Yes. Vice Mayor.
I'd just like to note that Captain Shaw was interviewed quoted in 32963 on that very point. It's in I think it's last week's edition of 32963, so the word is leaking out there. Well done, by the way.
Thank you. Public Works Department, Mr. Bryant.
Good morning, Council. In addition to my report, I don't have anything else to report on. One thing I am reporting on. I'm trying to keep on the city about the project going on with the JI pipeline and keeping their job site cleaned up and well barricaded. I did meet with somebody yesterday, and they are following up with my request on it.
Terrific, thank you. Anything from Mr. Bryant?
Do you know when they'll be done that line coming to Johns Island?
So project end date is looking at spring of 2025.
So that all that area out by Fred Turk and all around there, that'll be till the spring?
Yes, ma'am.
Terrific.
Anything else? Mr. Elwater.
What's the condition of the anchor that they damaged? What's going on with that?
So right now, it just looks like there's a little bit of spoils coming off from where the drill rig went through. I think that
It actually went through the anchor?
No. Where they passed by the outside edge of it. Me and Mr. Harpering actually reviewed it the other day, and we're looking at, I'll let you speak on the historical side of it, but possibly restoring or having something done to help prolong the life of it.
I think that's going to cost at least $1 million, don't you think?
Apparently they're not aware
Charge the city of Vero Beach.
They're not aware of our own anchoring limitations. Well, we'll monitor the cost on that, and I think you may be a little light on the estimate, Councilman, but we'll see. Thank you very much, and thank you again. Know you did an awful lot of overtime work, and appreciate it. So
yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Town Clerk.
Town Clerk has no report this month.
All set? All right, thank you. Town Attorney, Mr. Sweeney.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything on any of the legal fronts to report, but I'd like to take the opportunity as the only other charter officer to just very quickly thank Councilmember Smith. Again, thank you for your insight, your depth of understanding, and maybe most importantly, your kindness for my time serving you. It has been my pleasure to work for and with you while I've been the town attorney. And I wish you nothing but the best as you become a private citizen and get to return to that aspect of your life in the town of Indian River Shore. So thank you. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hartwright. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Just want to do a brief summary and point out a couple things that weren't mentioned, probably based on some humility by our staff regarding the Hurricane Milton response. Just echo what you said, Mr. Mayor. The town's very, very fortunate. We were all there. We saw what happened. But a couple things that I do want to amplify have to do with the preparation and the experience of our personnel, some of the foresight in getting a front-end loader and having it on lease for a period of time so we could actually use it and were available to use it, and it made a big difference during the response to the storm. Certainly we know that a lot of the advanced work in scheduling and public safety includes things like getting extra food, getting extra water, because we're manned here 24/7, and thinking about things like that. Also, in our public works side, Larry and his team were out looking at the various sites that were not necessarily under our control, but to ensure that the debris and the other things that are out there were going to be addressed. And I'll mention the site out here in a minute. But that was a major issue, and great compliments to our public works and to our building department on that. Our building department personnel went out. They did pre-site visits at all of the active construction sites. Then our preliminary response, public safety, we do our damage assessment preliminarily. Then our building official and our code enforcement officer go out and do more detailed damage assessment evaluations, determine if there's anything there on any of our previous substantial damage sites and homes that we have in our flood zones, which we have a list of, and they do. So there's just a lot that goes on regarding that, and there's really, I can't compliment highly enough all of our department heads and their staffs along the lines, and people working at home. Jan is putting out newsletters and getting out information for us. It was very gratifying to work with such a great team during the response on behalf of the town. Do want to note one thing that you may or may not have been aware of as the response went on. There was some flooding in certain areas, and our public safety folks went out with pumps and tried to clear those roads and do some of that work, which again you may not hear about as much. Public safety also went out. We did a survey of the waterways around town. There actually are some grants, and there's a process right now for removal of debris or other items outside of the anchoring limitation area or abandoned vessel piece. Fortunately, we're in very, very good shape in the town. There's nothing that was observed in the waterborne evaluation, as it were. So we're in pretty good shape there. Really, I think the damage that we saw in town was just the side of the 7-Eleven and the little archway, just a little, nothing substantive. I will note that, as with every one of these items, there are lessons learned from them, and I just want to assure the council that myself and the department heads meet and talk, and we have met and we have talked about what happened, what did we do, how could we potentially do anything better, or any lessons learned. So that's an important part of the experience associated with this. I don't want to belabor the Dune project because Quentin covered it excellently. We're not entirely sure the timing or the duration of any closures of Beachcomber. We're just going to monitor that on a day-to-day basis. We've ordered some signs to put basically at the A1A Beachcomber intersection here, but then also down there. One of the things that we're concerned about, obviously, is even though the contractor has people, for safety measures associated with the equipment, there's just a lot going on, and it's happening fast. So we are monitoring that and keeping a very close eye on that. Just quickly, as to the pipeline work, I want to compliment our building official, Fred Held, and Jake Mykrantz, and our Public Works Director, Larry Bryant. They've been on the contractors. They've been out there. They've been really on top of them, getting onto the city because it's a city project. And I just want to specifically compliment Larry on some of his communications that he had last week to make some things happen out here, because it was an issue. The anchor was actually knocked down by a backhoe. They put it back up. And in regards to that, Janice was able to pull up some history for us on the anchor of what we had. But as some things, never come to mind, this brought to mind the fact that we should probably get somebody out here. I've reached out to the college locally. They have archaeology department, have some of their folks come up, take a look at it, and let us know what they think in terms of long-term stability and maintenance for where it is right now. So that's it on the anchor. And other than that, Mr. Mayor, anything else?
Just one question. Did they not see the anchor? That's all.
I can't account for that because it's pretty big and it sticks out, so I don't know what happened.
If there's nothing else, I just want to make a comment that I forgot to make on the mayor's report talking about Milton, but I think we saw some benefits for these projects that we've been undertaking on roads with the responsibility of the town. The constant algebra that Maker Beach Road gave us throughout the years, we saw some great improvement with that. Same as Seminole, Pebble Bay Circle as well, Pebble Bay South. They didn't drain ideally yet, but those roads really had great improvement over the past storm events. And we didn't need it this time because there was no need to really respond with life-saving measures to any of those places. Those projects are going to be a continued benefit. God forbid that circumstance ever does happen. So I know we monitor those, and just wanted to point out that with all the angst that it caused council and staff, those projects did have a net benefit for resident safety. All right, anything else from Mr. Hartgrave? All right, we'll move to item 12, council committee reports. And I'll just note preliminarily at all organizational meetings, this is like picking your electives when you're in college. We have a number of, Mr. Dane, I know you have some interest in some of them. We have a number of intergovernmental committees that it's the responsibility of council members to share. So between now and the November meeting, blank sheet should go out with, not blank sheet with current committee assignments and preferences in the past, and you all can correct me if I'm wrong. The old military rule of RHIP, right, has its privileges retained, so if there's a fight over a particular committee that we have every year, I just have I can't tell you how many people I've beaten away for the treasurer goes council or whatever. The senior member of council generally gets the primary rotation. The alternate, just to clear this up, the alternate can attend every one of those meetings because they're those public meetings. You're not the voting member, but you can attend if you have an interest in those as well. I don't know that I've ever seen an alternate attend one of my meetings, but you're welcome to. Yours are very far away. I think they are sometimes. Not Tahiti, but sometimes getting down to Indian River State College, and so it seems like you're right. So let's all do a good job, the five that are running on council, looking through, identifying what interests we have, and have a fruitful discussion. Are we able to circulate a preference sheet before the meeting as long as we don't discuss amongst ourselves? You take this, I'll take that, so we can streamline this a little bit?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so all of those would be submitted back to our clerk, and she would be, I assume, would be the appropriate sort of clearinghouse to kind of get an idea, and then we could streamline if there was some, race for a particular position, so to speak.
So, why don't we say, I don't think it's unreasonable to ask, let's all get those sheets in with what we're signing up for a week before November 7th. And then that can be made part of the packet as long as we don't talk about it, we can see who's interested in what. And hopefully have a more streamlined discussion and looking at the whole. All right?
Utilities Commission, once again, did not have a quorum. So there's nothing better than preparing for a meeting, going over there and sitting in Vero Beach council chambers and find out you don't have a meeting. So,
is that 2 or 3 in a row now?
I think it might be 3 this year. I think coming back, not necessarily in a row. It really rankles me.
Okay.
So, that is a problem of Vero Beach City Council, because the way they appoint members to commissions is each council person picks one for themselves. So they're not doing their job, and it was brought up, that the clerk has to contact those folks. But frankly, Mr. Mayor, I think that just shows you what council thinks of the value of those.
Well, I agree, Councilman Alwater, and before I say something I regret, because several years in here has made me learn when not to say things I'm going to regret. I do want to think about this, because an integral part of what's left of the franchise agreement includes the Utility Commission meeting, so that it's a forum where we have participation. And if there's a let's call it a again, I'm struggling to not say something I'm going to regret. Let's call it a negligent appointment of people that consistently results in the lack of a quorum. That's a breach of the franchise agreement, and I'd like Mr. Sweeney to give that some thought, see what recourse we have. In the first instance, it's probably going to be to, make a demand on the, City of Vero Beach Council to make sure that their people show up for the meetings, or do what every other collegial committee in the state has, which is an internal rule that if you miss 2 in a row, you're out, and then they have to appoint another member. Before I get myself further exercised on this, I trust you'll work something up and circulate it among council so that we can have a look at it before it goes out, maybe approve it at the November meeting and send it on its way.
Well,
and do you have any ideas further, Mr. Alward?
Well, to your point, they have made the decision. Let me step back for a second for people who don't follow this. As part of the construction new water plant, they're going to fund it completely with debt, even though they've been sucking money out of this utility fund forever and putting it back in their general fund to keep their taxes down. So they're going to fund it almost entirely with debt. So they have a process to select a bond underwriter, and that has an impact on the ratepayers, because it's going to be involving the fees that they charge, that the underwriter charges, the interest rates that might be paid on those. You would think, based on the ordinance, since it impacts costs and so forth, that will come in front of the Utilities Commission meeting. No, it's coming in front of the Finance Commission meeting. Now, I don't know whether they did it on purpose because they think I'm going to raise objections, just for people know. I worked in the bond business from 1978 to 2014, and I managed the largest municipal bond investment group on the planet. And when I left Vanguard, the team I ran was responsible for $750 billion in assets in 2014. So I know a little bit about the bond market. And they moved this over to the Finance Commission. So I have to watch for that meeting. Unfortunately, I have to do some personal travel. My luck, they'll have there. But if I can get in that meeting, I think their process for scoring is quite a bit off. But it should have come in front of the Utilities Commission meeting, I think, clearly on that, because it impacts cost, and they shoved it over there. So it's just once again the disrespect that comes out of the city of Vero Beach toward the town.
Okay, so were you taking notes on that? All right, and you can work with me and individually, and Councilman Alwater and anybody else who wants to participate. We'll put something together. We don't technically have to approve it at the meeting, now that I think about it, but I think it's a good signpost to at least set that as a date. By November 14th, let's try to have something that we're all comfortable with to go out. All right. Item number 13, call to audience. We have some members of the public here. Anybody wish to make a comment on anything at all having to do with the town? Or not having to do with the town?
Good morning again. My name is Roseanne Salerno. I am the president of the board of the Park Shores of Vero Beach Condominium Association, which is located on the south end of Park Shores right across from Fred Turk. First, I want to thank you all for your service. Thank you for the emergency response service. Thank you for the public safety service. Being a member on a board, sometimes it's a thankless job. I'm here to talk about the lift stations along A1A that service all of the communities, all of our communities. In the aftermath of Milton, Hurricane Milton, we had power outages. Park Shores suffered a couple of 3 days of a power outage, and the lift station was not working, which caused sewage to back up in our streets, to run into our storm water drainage system, which runs into our pond, and also caused our homeowners not to be able to flush their toilets. So we have a few questions. I believe our lift station that services Park Shores is number 69, which we heard was a chronic condition. But our questions are these. Do all the lift stations have backup generators? And if not, is it possible to get a backup generator on each one so that when the power goes out, the generator kicks in? And number 2 is, if this isn't your jurisdiction, can you please direct us to whose jurisdiction this is? And can Indian River Shores represent the community in trying to resolve this situation? We did have a truck come out, and they did apply lime to the streets that were affected. The lime is still there, so I don't know when they're going to come back out. I'm not even sure who came out, but when they're going to come back out to power wash the streets. So those are our 2 questions. Can we get generators? And if you're not the proper people to speak to, who is? And can you intervene on our behalf?
Thank you, Ms. Salerno. So you direct your questions to town manager. We'll take it up with him, and we will get back to you in due course. We will let you know that, okay?
Now, would you like my phone number so someone can contact me?
Certainly, but if you direct the questions to Mr. Harpering, just...
Oh, after this meeting?
Yeah. Yep.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Just so we're not oblivious to the problem. We're aware of it. And, timing is everything. If we talked to them last week as they're trying to put the city of Vero Beach back together again and in South Beach, we're probably not going to have, the same kind of reception we'll have if we deal with this, administratively and course to course. I know they did put temporary generators in some of the lift stations, but your questions are very well taken, and there ought to be a plan in place. And while it's not our jurisdiction, because it's not our water utility, we're under a franchise agreement, and there are minimum standards that they have to comply with. So rest assured, we will work on that with you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Anybody else? If there's nothing further, going once, going twice, we are adjourned until November 14th. Thank you. Thank you.